and I apply it every time I speak, and this is something personal, but I'm sharing it with you, is that whenever I start talking, I just make a small dua before. Is that I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make what I say beneficial for myself and for the people. Because no matter how you prepare, no matter how you study your audience, you study your podium, you prepare your stuff, you don't know in the end what is beneficial. Maybe something you say by mistake, this is the thing that benefits people. Something you say that is unprepared, and this is the thing that benefits your audience and benefits yourself when you go and reflect upon what you're saying. So the very first, or actually the goal of us being here, and the goal of people delivering khutbahs, and the goal of us wanting to learn about Islam or whatever, is that we want to go to Jannah. And this has to be clear, that we want, Jazakallah khairan, Abdurrahman, he recited very nice ayat that remind us with this goal, that we really want to go to Jannah. The one who goes to paradise is the one who's successful. And that's it, period. There's nothing else. So there should be, there might be some side goals, but they should all be, this is the main goal of everything else you should be doing in your life. And if this is not clear, it will be clear, inshallah. So if you're on the right path, then this will become clear one day. So in the end, you're doing the Jum'ah khutbah, or you're doing a certain talk or whatever, this is just one small piece in the way you want to go to Jannah. Okay? So this would answer all the other things, all the other questions that you're asking. Like, for example, I'm not good. Why do I go and give a khutbah? Or I'm not knowledgeable enough, or whatever. You're just doing this because this is just one means of you to go to Jannah. You're just trying every sort of means that you can. Everything you can do that will help you go to Jannah, you just do it. And you don't care about how people would perceive it. You don't care about, how people would think of you if you're doing something bad and you're saying something good, or whatever. You're just doing this, and you're having your excuse in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're doing this because you want to get closer to Him. You want to go to Jannah. Sometimes you tell people about things and yourself you're struggling with them, but you're telling them about it, and as I said in the very first few phrases that I mentioned, that I make a small dua in the beginning for myself, that I want this to be beneficial to me and to people. So at least be sincere with this. So if you cannot, if you're having your problems, everybody has their problems, at least be sincere with yourself that you want to overcome them. And this, now you're not under this ayah, you're not following under this ayah, that you're commanding good and you're forgetting yourself. You're not forgetting yourself. You're trying your best, but you're still weak. And you're trying every sort of thing that you can think of. When you talk to people about something, it gets into your heart more if you're having this intention. Otherwise, you're just, pretending, you're just acting, and you don't want to go there. So you don't want to go into, you're a good speaker, and when you talk, people are pleased with your talk, you don't want to go there. This is not what you're doing. What you're doing is that you're trying your best to remind yourself and to remind people, period. Okay? So this is the very first important thing that we want to do. And the Sheikh Sharif talked about knowing your audience. You have to know your audience, but I want to talk about something else in knowing your audience. You have to know the language that is understandable by the audience. So you might be, for example, if I talk to you in high-level Arabic now, how many would understand me? Just, okay, Noor, some to you, and Abdurrahman and Ahmed. But this might not be understandable by everybody. And even if I go further, like some poetry I like in Arabic, and I know that not many people would understand what I'm saying. It affects me, and I like it, and it, when I hear it, I think about my life, I think about Allah and stuff like this. But it will not help people. Okay? So think about your audience in this term. Think about it in a term that if you want to tell them about Jannah, if you want to tell them about hellfire, if you want to tell them about Quran, if you want to tell them about Sunnah, if you want to tell them about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you want to tell them about any aspect of Islam, think about your audience in a term of how would you get this message to them. Maybe you are ahead of them, maybe you are on the same page. Whatever your state is, always think about your audience. Okay? Think about the language that reaches them. Think about the language that touches their heart. And what you can do is just think about this and plan it. You cannot go and touch their heart, right? So all what you have in your hand is just good intention that you want to try your best to reach their hearts. And in this regard, I mentioned a story that one of the scholars, he had like his son or whatever, he was asking him, like some speech we listen to and it affects us so much. and some other speech, and maybe it's eloquent and everything, but it doesn't affect us. So he said something very, remarkable. He said, "Man نائحة الثكلى كنائحة المستأجرة." What does this mean? It means that when some person dies, his relatives, they are sad. Of course, there's some traditions. Of course, they're wrong, but they happen. For example, in some villages in Egypt, that they start, screaming and doing stuff like this when a person dies. And then to please these people that are screaming, you go there and you scream with them. So now they're happy that you're sharing their feelings. And it's a sort of a standard, like if there are lots of screamers, then this person is good. So they have their weird ways of screaming and stuff like this. So the idea here is that some people go further even, and they rent people to come and scream. Alright, so those are the rented people. So of course it doesn't come natural. So it's not natural now, and you know that those people are not they don't have the feeling. They are just pretending. So that scholar is saying that the one who pretends to be screaming is not like the one who's rented to be screaming. So if you're just doing the khutbah as if you're acting or pretending or just delivering anything, I know this example is a bit weird, but I like that example. So if you're just doing it like acting, it won't touch the heart. So the thing that comes from the heart, it touches the heart. But if you think about what you're saying, and it comes really from inside, then this is what affects your audience, inshallah. And it affects you in the beginning. So the first thing, no acting, no pretending. Second thing, worrying too much about your audience reception. So when I'm standing, it happens to me all the time, especially with bigger numbers. So when you have like 300 people in front of you, maybe you'll get there sometime. But when you have this, and you see people looking at you, sometimes you see people like looking at you like smirking, sometimes you see people, it happened to me once when I was delivering a khutbah and I wasn't prepared. I was just there in the masjid and they told me the imam is not coming, so please go and give a khutbah. So I was not prepared. So I just went up and said whatever I wanted to say, and then I wanted to mention an ayah and I forgot it. So I stopped a bit and I wanted to remember it. And then saw two brothers sitting next to one another, and then one of them was whispering to the other, and they were like pointing at me and laughing. So imagine the situation. So but in the end, you shouldn't worry about anything of this. So this is like extreme. But you see it in the eyes of people that those they don't like you. They're like making fun of you in their hearts or whatever. You don't know, first place. You don't know what they're thinking of. Once I had this brother that was looking at me in a way that I thought he didn't like what I'm saying. Actually, he came after the khutbah and he told me, I really liked what you were saying. So you never know what these people are thinking of. So if you have this feeling when you're delivering your talk, always think about the first principles. And the first principle is that you're just doing this because it is a means for you to get to Jannah. You don't care about your audience. And even they say this in public speaking. Of course, they don't talk about Jannah. But in public speaking, like giving presentations and whatever, they say once you start giving your presentation, forget about your audience. So if they're looking at you, if you're doing whatever, so stop thinking about how they are looking at you. So don't worry too much about your audience reception. So I'm like trying to pick a few things because lots of what I wanted to say was covered before. When you're picking your topic, make sure that you don't fall into the problem of the micro-environment focus. This is what I call it. So like you're having some problems, whatever, on your Facebook page or with some friends or whatever, you think this is the focus of the problems of life, and then you want to talk about this in the Jum'ah khutbah. This is not the case. So talk about the general topics that are essential and important to your audience. And Islam is very, it's encompassing everything. It's not only about how we verbally talk to one another. It's not only about how we talk to our parents. It's not only about how we do the prayer. It's not only about how we give charity. It's not only about how we not look at girls and stuff like this. It's not any of this alone. It's all of this together. So be diverse in your choices, and it's always nice to talk about things you yourself are thinking about. And in this regard, I want you to note down this book. It's called Riyadh al-Salihin. Whether you're planning to give khutbahs or you're not, or whatever, I recommend reading this book. Okay? And this is where lots of people start. And actually this book is very nice because it's constructed in like all the topics that are important to people, to Muslims. And what the author did, Imam Nawawi, he just got some ayat and got some hadith on each topic. That's it. And you need no more than this in your Jumu'ah. Sometimes, yes?
What if, for example, like a relevant event that's happening in the world, maybe you have a younger audience, and you know that, for example, if you talk about this topic, it may disturb most of your viewers. So, like, how do you get around that?
I wanted to talk about this. This would fall into talking about this book directly. What we need to talk about, brothers, is about the general things. Don't go, into special topics where there are different opinions. Don't go. I wouldn't talk about it. So I have different opinion than Sheikh Sharif, but I would never touch on topics like Christmas and stuff like this. Okay, just talk about the basic ones. Okay, don't talk about things that are debatable. Talk about this amongst your friends. It's okay, but don't talk about debatable topics in a khutbah ever, especially at our level. If you're a scholar, talk about whatever you want. But if you are at our level, talk about the main things. Talk about prayer. Talk about just siyam. Talk about Quran. Talk about the general things. Okay, that we need to have these things in our life, and these are very easy to prepare, and they are very easy to reflect upon. Okay, and this is actually even in your general advising your brothers or whatever like this. You shouldn't be talking about debatable things because you never had the training or you never had the knowledge to do this. Okay, you only talk about things you know, and this is important in this religion. You talk about things you know very well. So you talk about the major things, and there's lots of major things that you actually need to talk about. All right, and these things, they are lacking in our environment. Alright, so we're actually talking now that not all people are praying Jumu'ahs even. So this is like a fundamental thing. How can people not pray Jumu'ah? So if you talk to your audience that you want to tell them, just bring a brother with you to pray Jumu'ah, this is a good topic. You talk about, da'wah, stuff like this. Very fundamental things, very easy things to tackle. Alright, so if you know that there is like what you're saying, if you know that there is a topic that might be disturbing to people or whatever, just don't get there. Okay, yeah. So stay on the things that are easy to handle. Stay on the things that are fundamental. And maybe when you gain more knowledge and stuff like this, you can get there one day, one time. Okay, or when you're having some discussion with your peers or whatever. Yeah, but not in Jumu'ah, khutbah. So Book of Riyadh Salihin will start with stuff like Bab al-Tawbah, so like repentance. Of course, it starts with al-Ikhlas, like sincerity. It starts with repentance. It starts with love of. It has those chapters like love of Allah. It has chapters like love of being nice to people. These things are fundamental things in Islam, and we have to tackle them in khutbah, in khutbahs. And they are very easy to get from a book like this. It's just a hadith and Quran, okay, with some good explanation, and they are available. And this book is well served. So this would cover like the major things that Sheikh Sharif mentioned, like the Quran and a Sunnah for any topic you do. Yeah, so Sheikh Sharif talked about this. He talked about that when you're talking, you always remind yourself that you're not better than your audience. Actually, one scholar, he mentions this. He says that we are not telling you things that you do not know. We're actually reminding you of things that you might forget. Okay, so that's a scholar talking. He's not even like one of us. So always think of it this way. You're reminding yourself and you remind your audience, and that's it. Even if what you're saying is very clear, even if it's as simple as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us all. If it comes from the heart, then it will touch. And the thing that is much more effective than your speech is always Quran. So maybe not all of us understand Quran, but Quran is very effective. If you say it properly, like recite the ayah, and get a good translation of it, it will have much more effect than just your normal words. Alright? So always rely on Quran. Quran is very, very important. So if you want to have a message, then deliver it with the Quran. Much, much, much more effective than you're just talking. Alright, so when you're doing your khutbah, there is something very important, and I will write it down because I want you to see it. And Sheikh Sharif mentioned this. It needs to be short. Okay? Don't talk too much. People don't like you when you talk to them, even if they like what you're talking. So if they like what you're saying. So one of the Sahaba, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he's very knowledgeable. So he used to sit with people once in a week, and he used to tell them about what the Prophet ﷺ used to say and do and stuff like this. So one of the people came to him and they told him, your speech is very nice. Why don't you sit with us more than this? So he said that I don't want to do this because I don't want to bore you. So this is like a companion talking about the Prophet directly. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So our speech is much lacking. It's less than this level. And you don't want to bore people. You don't want to make people feel bored. Okay, so don't talk too much. Don't go there. He actually narrated the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ كان يتخولنا بالموعظة مخافة السآمة علينا. The Prophet ﷺ didn't give us like continuous preaching because he didn't want us to be bored. Even the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so think about yourself. Don't be like the preacher. You just make a concise and small thing. Okay? Okay, so I want to talk about giving advice in general, but let's stop here and try to have some practice. Okay? So I want us to have like 2 minutes to think about a topic, and then we'll pick some brave person, and he will tell us about this topic in like 5 minutes. You have your phones, you can research or whatever. So just a small thing in 5 minutes. Okay? Sit down and give you. Let's make a general topic. So let's talk about, for example, okay. So I was picking sincerity. Let's talk about salah. Whatever, salah, as the brother said. Alright? Think about what you need to tell people about it in 2 minutes.